After my legitimate older sister jumped into the lake and was saved, she said she had a rebirth. She abandoned the Prime Minister's son she'd admired for so long and threw herself headfirst into the arms of my utterly ordinary fiancé. Anyway, he doesn't love you. He is just treating you as my substitute. When he reaches the pinnacle of power, that I am the concubine, born sister, I can only smile and give it up. My legitimate sister, she has already died once. Don't you understand that men can't be relied on? When Wen Changfeng came to my house to present the betrothal gifts, he was dressed in fine clothes, riding a spirited horse, looking high-spirited and vigorous. I risked being scolded and hid behind the screen to steal a peek. The man had clean features, ink-black hair tied high, and his gestures revealed a gentle humility. He counted as the most handsome sort among ordinary people. I let out a sigh of relief, feeling that I ought to be worthy of him. He discussed politics and history with Dad, well-versed in the past and present, neither servile nor arrogant, making Dad smile and nod repeatedly. I was figuring in my mind whether marrying him would be any better than living here in the Yun Manor. Wen Changfeng behaved very well, showing not the slightest bit of slight or dissatisfaction because of my status as a concubine's daughter, until my legitimate older sister Yun Shu returned from her outing. Ignoring the servant's attempts to stop her, she stormed into the room like a whirlwind, her flamboyant peony, red skirt, looking like a burning flame as she ran, scorched Wen Changfeng's vision so that he unconsciously shifted his gaze onto her. Yingxiu ignored the presence of male outsiders, leaned on her dad's knees, and raising her eyebrows and blinking, told amusing stories from outside, talking about how she chased away a greedy vendor, saved a girl being harassed, and even helped a trapped little rabbit get free along the way. Wen Changfeng fell silent. He stared at Yunshu's flushed cheeks, stunned. Dad dotingly stroked her black hair, lightly scolding, Shu, there are outsiders here, don't be rude." The next second, Wen Changfeng's passionate gaze froze, like a basin of cold water, ruthlessly doused on a faint candle flame that had just been lit. Because the girl he was to marry was named Yungsha, not Yungshu. The falling flowers have intent, but the flowing water is heartless. Every time Wen Changfeng entrusted someone to send me gifts, there was always a share for my legitimate sister, and in the greeting letters, he would always put in a word to send. Regards to Miss Yunshu. It was just a pity that my legitimate sister would always give them a cursory glance and toss them aside. Her sweetheart was the legitimate son of the Prime Minister's manor, Zhao Qinchen. Young Master Zhao was dashing and suave, handsome enough to rival Panan, but father felt young Master Zhao was too dissolute. He was over 20, yet gave no thought to merit or fame. Only lingering in the fragrance of women, he really couldn't be considered a man worth entrusting one's life to. The only thing he had going for him was his status as the Prime Minister's youngest legitimate son. Father ordered me to persuade my legitimate sister not to set her heart on a useless lump of mud that couldn't be plastered onto a wall. I went over, and as it happened, she was eating the grapes Zhao Qinchen sent. Summoning like young Master Zhao is an existence you could never hope to climb up to in your whole life. You should be happy for me that he has taken a fancy to me." She sneered back at me, casually picked up a grape, and threw it playfully at my forehead. With a thud, I frowned and covered my forehead. She was tickled pink. "Yunshaya, don't say the grapes are sour just because you can't eat them." I lowered my head, silently enduring her insults. I am a concubine's daughter. My mother was originally a slave maid serving Dad. I only came along because of an accident. To put it bluntly, I am just a slave too. If the master is happy, he rewards you with food. If the master isn't happy, being beaten to death with sticks isn't considered the slightest bit wrong. This is the lesson Yungshu taught me. She threw another grape at me, hitting me squarely on the tip of my nose, making her giggle. "Do you know? This single grape is worth your entire month's allowance. Only young Master Zhao could send this for me to eat. She loved mocking me for being poor and stingy. Her eyes were sparkling, just like that dead concubine of yours, reeking of poverty. What do you know anyway? I lowered my head, staring at the tips of my shoes, staying silent. My mother died because of Yunshu's pranks. When I was young, I was taking a nap, and Yunshu sneaked over to snatch my doll. Yinyang tried to stop her, saying that if I woke up and didn't see the doll, I would cry. She got angry, ran out, and tried to jump into the lake. She jumped lightly, and my aunt was terrified, so she had to bite the bullet and jump in to save her. But she could swim. My aunt couldn't. She climbed back onto the shore, didn't call for help, just giggled as she watched my aunt thrashing in the lake water, sinking to the bottom. When I was woken up, Aunt's body had already been carried out and buried. When questioned, Yunshu's usual trick was to cry. Simple, crude, effective. She said my aunt just wanted to fish out the money she had dropped at the bottom of the lake, and that she died because of greed. Me aunt brought it upon herself, and it had nothing to do with her. Everyone believed her. So, from that day on, aside from money for my own security, I needed nothing. Seeing I didn't speak, Yunshu snorted, casually crushed another grape, letting the crystal, clear juice flow onto the ground. Look, you can't afford these grapes, but I can crush them at will. Don't be so young yet. Learn nothing but jealousy, unable to stand seeing others do well. I lowered my head and replied, "Thank you for the lesson, sister." I took a few steps back and walked out. After that, I kept my mouth shut. Dad was furious. He would rather send her to be a nun than allow her to marry young Master Zhao. Yunsu was out of options. Watching other women gain favor with young Master Zhao, she got desperate. On a dark and windy night, Yunsu climbed over the wall and went out, only returning the next morning. When she came back, her clothes were disheveled, her hair bun was askew, and she had lost several pearl hairpins. She told me smugly that she had already privately pledged herself to Zhao Qinchin, and as long as Dad gave the word, Zhao Qinchin would come to the Yun Manor to propose. I was shocked, but it was also expected. "You two aren't married yet. How could you?" She gave me a side. I stuck out a finger and poked my forehead hard. "You idiot! Young Master Zhao has so many beauties around him. If I don't go all out, how will he take the bait?" My scalp went numb. "Then how do we get Dad to relent?" She grinned. "I'll go find Dad later and say if I can't marry him. I'll jump into the lake. Dad will definitely think I am just talking out of anger. You wait by the lake later, as soon as I hit the water. You go call Dad over. Anyway, I can swim. It'll be fine." I froze. She let out a frowning as she sized me up. "You aren't still holding a grudge against me, are you?" I shook my head, putting on a docile appearance. As an unfavored concubine, born daughter, I have always been cautious with my words and actions, trying to be as invisible as possible. The only time I have any presence is when others need to use me. Father uses my reserved obedience to flaunt the harmony of the inner courtyard. My legitimate sister uses my dullness to highlight her nobility and radiance. What about Wen Changfeng? He also wants to use me as a stepping stone to climb Dad's ladder to the top. Right? I can almost see my future. But I don't care. I just want to survive. Preferably to still survive with dignity. All that lovey-dovey stuff isn't as important as my own life. However, before I had time to probe Wen Changfeng's inner mind, an accident happened. After Yunshu fell into the water, I called Dad back in time, but I didn't expect Wen Changfeng to be in Dad's study too. He was here to discuss our wedding. Dad found out Yunshu had fallen into the water and hurried away without looking back. He also looked outside anxiously, but didn't follow. Second Miss Yun. He always addressed me like that, whereas he addressed Yunshu as Miss Yun. A life is at stake. I am afraid it wouldn't be appropriate for me to stay. I shall take my leave. He lowered his head, cupped his hands, and bowed properly. His good upbringing prevented him from doing anything fickle, but his wavering and disloyalty couldn't be faked. I returned the greeting indifferently. He walked out of the study door, and just as he lifted his foot, Yongshu's sobbing cries came closer and closer. He paused. How I wished he would just turn around and leave, and not bother with Yongshu. But he still feigned hesitation and looked back, standing there, gazing expectantly toward the backyard. Young Master Wen. My voice trembled, a bad premonition welling up from the bottom of my heart. Let me see you out. Taking 3 steps in 2, I walked up to Wen Changfeng and motioned for him to follow. He still refused to leave, still gazing in the direction of the back courtyard. Yongshu's voice was getting closer. In just a few breaths, a soaked Yongshu ran over with red-rimmed eyes. She rushed straight into Wen Changfeng's arms, hugging his waist tightly, and without saying a word, kissed him on the cheek. I was shocked to the core, suddenly clenching my fingers tight. That was my fiancé. Yongshu knew that. My blood seemed to freeze. My chest felt like it was ruthlessly slammed by a sledgehammer weighing thousands of pounds, smashing me to pieces. Wen Changfeng was stunned. He didn't push her away, but instead suppressed his excitement and gently patted Yongshu's back. His fingers lingered. I couldn't help my blood surging, and my vision went completely blurry. In that instant, it was as if a fire had burned away the fantasies and hopes that had just risen in my heart. Yongshu didn't dare sleep at night and specifically asked me to keep her company. In her eyes, I was naturally unworthy of lying in the same bed as her, nor should I spread bedding to lie on the floor. So naturally, I moved a wooden stool over, sat by the head of her bed, propped my head on my arm, and listened to her talk. Yunsha, the past life was too terrible. Zhao Qinshan was a beast. He only took me as a concubine. He had countless bed warmers, abused and humiliated me, and gave me away as a gift to others. I was just a pawn for him to win people over. My drowsy brain suddenly snapped awake. I looked at her closely, but she didn't seem to notice anything wrong. You sure are lucky. Wen Changfeng later shot straight up the ranks, actually becoming prime minister and standing toe with Zhao Qinshan. Speaking of this, Yongshu really didn't understand. After that, I died under Zhao Qinshan's torment. Wen Changfeng's power was at its peak. Yet you voluntarily asked for a divorce, asked for some money and shops, abandoned everything and left. Yunxia, why did you want a divorce? He was already the prime minister. At that time, the whole world knew of Wen Changfeng's renown. He was simply beneath one person above 10,000. Yongshu's face involuntarily flushed, and her jade-smooth earlobes turned completely pink. I listened silently. At first, I didn't believe it. Yungxia, I want to marry Wen Changfeng. He likes me. I know it. She suddenly sat up and gripped my arm tightly. He only treats you as a substitute for me. Since you are going to divorce him in the future anyway, you might as well just let me marry him. Seeing the determination in her eyes, I finally began to seriously consider this whole rebirth thing. To make someone like Yunshu, who is so high and mighty and never acts without profit, throw herself at him like this, could rebirth actually be real? Besides, I am going to divorce Wen Changfeng in the future. What exactly happened to make someone like me, who just wants to survive, have no choice but to ask for a divorce? I am very sure that I won't fall in love with Wen Changfeng. He must have done something that would get him killed, which would implicate my past self, so I had no choice but to leave. I curled my lips into a smile. All right, sister, you marry him. Since Yunshu wants to throw herself at him so badly, I'll just let her have him. The stool was hard, and I sat with my back straight for several hours. My whole body ached, feeling swollen and numb, but I patiently listened to Yongshu talk about the misery of her past life and the love she couldn't have. She was afraid yet excited, and her pent-up desire to confide gave me a lucky break. It seemed that only by talking non-stop could she dissolve her indignation and lingering fear. I desperately memorized the things that might be useful to me, not daring to miss a single sentence. Until she fell into a deep sleep. I moved lightly and blew out the lamp. In the darkness, Yunshu's brows were still furrowed, her lips pursed tight. It seems she doesn't know about the things I did behind her back. Yunshu's rebirth messed up my revenge plan. I originally planned to set her up to marry that playboy Zhao Qinchin. Looks like I'll have to make some adjustments. Some things aren't just forgiven once. But every time you think of them, you have to forgive them again. I'll always remember the day concubine died. Yungsu was hugging my doll, crying, looking all wronged as she was held in Dad's arms and comforted. Dad had his back to me, coaxing her softly, as if afraid the precious pearl in his arms would shatter. Let it be, let it be. It is just a slave. If she is dead, she is dead. Don't be afraid, Axiu. But the one who died was clearly the concubine who gave birth to and raised me. But Dad told Yunshu not to be afraid. That day at dusk, the setting sun slanted west, and Dad's tall body cast a huge shadow. This shadow, in every nightmare, looms over me. I know that concubine mother and I are not favored, but I can't. Or at least I shouldn't. Live such a pathetic life. I am starting to hate myself for taking a nap. I am clearly a concubine's daughter, an unloved slave. Why was I acting like a pampered young miss? If I hadn't taken a nap, Yinyang wouldn't have clashed with Yungshu and she wouldn't have drowned. Yinyang was the best person in the world, and the only one who cared about me. All the beautiful words piled up into a mountain couldn't compare to a single bit of her. She even visited me in a dream, forbidding me from feeling guilty, and telling me to live on well. I am not just going to live well. I also want Yunshu to pay the price, and make everyone who looked down on Yinyang beg for death yet be unable to die. Early the next morning, I had just woken up and wasn't done washing up yet, but Wen Changfeng had already arrived at the front hall. Father closed the door and talked with him in the study for a long time. At noon, they called me to eat with them. When I arrived, Yungshu and Wen Changfeng were already seated, side by side, talking and laughing. After I came in, both of their expressions changed slightly, and they stopped talking. Dad lifted his chin, signaling me to sit down. Second, Miss Yun. Wen Changfeng hurriedly stood up and bowed to me. Yungshu glanced at me and tugged at his arm coquettishly. Changfeng, we are all family, no need to be so polite. I stayed silent and sat down. Just as expected, Father brought up the matter of me agreeing to call off the engagement, glossing over it with a faint, "You've been wronged." After that, it was time to pick up our chopsticks and eat. The implication was that this matter was already settled, and I had no right to refuse. It has always been this way. What Yungshu wants always comes first. My marriage and dignity, my concubine mother's life and reputation. None of it outweighs Yunshu's happiness. At the table, Yunshu kept serving dishes to Wen Changfeng and pouring him tea, her attentiveness making him look embarrassed and flustered. I should have been the most humiliated and angry person at the table, yet I acted as if nothing was wrong. He glanced at my expression from time to time. After finishing the meal, I stood up and left, while Yungshu excitedly went to the study with Father to discuss the wedding. Seeing no one around, Wen Changfeng chased after me and called out in a low voice, "Second, Miss Yun, I have something to say to you." He wore a green robe today, looking clean and sharp. Seeing me stop, he walked quickly up to me. He said with shame, "Please allow me to apologize to you, second, Miss Yun, for letting down your affection." Actually, I frowned impatiently. No need. I didn't show the sadness and indignation he had anticipated. I didn't even wait for him to explain before walking away again. He stood frozen in place and didn't chase after me again, even as I walked far away. Since you've abandoned me, why put on a pitiful act of having no choice? Did they really think I would be heartbroken and upset? After my engagement was broken off, Young-soo prepared for her wedding with great fanfare. The news that she was marrying down to Wen Changfeng, a minor seventh rank official, also spread. To avoid suspicion, Young-soo ordered me to throw away all the letters Wen Changfeng had written to me and the gifts he had sent. She also demanded that if I went out, I had to deny ever having been engaged to him. Otherwise, it would be dragging down her reputation. If word got out that I snatched my concubine, born sister's man, wouldn't people laugh their heads off? She has the nerve to do such a thing, yet others aren't allowed to say a word. Young-soo was full of herself, even starting to put on the airs of a prime minister's wife. She prides herself on being the proud daughter of heaven. This whole rebirth thing is truly bizarre. If she isn't the protagonist of this world, who else would be qualified? So, this time she will definitely fall for the right person and live the most glorious life. I wanted to laugh deep down. Didn't she think the same thing in her previous life? In her previous life, didn't she also wholeheartedly believe that the person she loved was worth it? In this life, just because there is the excuse of rebirth, does that make it more worthy than the last? Doesn't she understand that the human heart is the most fickle thing? The person who loves you like their own life 1 second could abandon you for their own benefit the next. Sure enough, Young-soo hadn't been happy for very long when bad news arrived. When Zhao Qinchin realized she had discarded him, the son of the prime minister, and actually chosen some unknown nobody, his ego took a hit, so he started spreading rumors out in the open, claiming that Young-soo had failed to seduce him and married someone else out of spite. He has got proof. It is the hairpin Young-soo dropped the day she had a secret tryst with him, plus a scented handkerchief. Young-soo panicked. She hurriedly checked, and sure enough, she had lost it there back when they were making love. "You bitch." She stormed over to me and with a face smack fey, gave me a solid slap across the face. I was reading a book, caught completely off guard. "Tell me, did you spread it?" She was fuming, her small face turning pale one moment and red the next. "You are just jealous of me. You can't stand that I stole your man, right?" I suppressed my anger, put the book aside and said solemnly, "Sister, I wouldn't dare." "You wouldn't dare." She pointed her finger at me and laughed coldly. Now that word has gotten out. If Changfeng gets suspicious and holds a grudge against me, how am I supposed to marry him? Yunxia, I don't care what method you use right now. Immediately, at once, go outside and admit that on that day it was you who stole my clothes and hairpins and pretended to be me to seduce Zhao Qinchin. Young-soo was truly scared. Her fingers were even trembling, as if the happiness she stole would slip away if she wasn't careful. I put on a submissive expression. But, even if I admit to this, when Big Sister has her wedding night with young Master Wen, if young Master Wen discovers that Big Sister doesn't bleed, Young-soo would have to pay the price for sneaking out and tasting the forbidden fruit that night. Young-soo froze for a moment, bit her lip, and a strange glint flashed in the depths of her eyes. "Don't worry, Father and I have already discussed it. When the time comes, we'll get him drunk and blow out the lamp. You look 6 or 7 parts like me, so you'll take my place. He won't notice. Once the deed is done and you've bled, use washing up as an excuse to come out, and then I'll switch with you. As long as there is blood on the virginity cloth, we'll have muddled our way through this." I blinked, so the father and daughter had already planned it all out. "But what about me, elder sister? If I am no longer a virgin, what will I do when I get married in the future?" She scoffed, the corners of her eyes tilting upward. "Yunsha, the fact that the Yun Manor has a use for you is your greatest blessing." After saying that, she shot me a warning glare and turned to leave. I clutched my burning cheek, while the maid beside me skillfully went to fetch a boiled egg to roll over it. Only when no one was around did I let out a satisfied laugh. "Very good, Young-soo, having experienced rebirth, is still the same old way." She took the bait with hardly any effort. I took out a piece of paper and wrote with my left hand. "Continue spreading rumors about Young-soo. Start preparing for the getaway." Also, investigate the type of women Wen Changfeng likes. Spare no expense to train one, whatever the cost. After writing this secret letter and carefully sealing it, I summoned a carrier pigeon with a whistle and sent the letter off. Yungsu didn't guess wrong. I was the one who spread the news, specifically to force her to make me take the fall. Only by taking the fall can I prepare for my escape later. Although I've been laying the groundwork by Zhao Qinchen's side for a long time, planning to slowly torture Yungsu after she married him. I never expected this sudden rebirth thing. I was actually worried that Yungsu from the previous life would notice I was pulling the strings behind the scenes, but she is still just as dumb as ever. I felt relieved, since she no longer likes Zhao Qinchen. Those floozies I paid off don't need to keep clinging to Zhao Qinchen. The next target is Wen Changfeng. Yungsu was right. I have a cheap life, and I am greedy. Just like my dead concubine mother. For money, I wouldn't even care about my life. But, with money, you can make ghosts push the millstone. It can also make that pack of ghosts pounce on Yungshu and devour her flesh and blood piece by piece until nothing is left. After concubine died, barely a day later, Yungshu got tired of playing with that rag doll. She had someone send that tattered rag doll back to me. The rag doll concubine sewed with her own hands was a little pony. With a sick sense of fun, she cut one of the pony's legs, ripped open its belly, pulled out the cotton stuffing, and then used red ink to draw the shape of intestines. When that old woman returned the little pony to me, she didn't leave. Instead, she widened her eyes, the corners of her mouth curling up, waiting for my reaction of bursting into tears. Oh my, the little pony seems to be dead. Look, its guts are all sticking out. Tske, so pitiful. The old woman stared at me expectantly. I turned around and went back into the room. When I came out again, I was holding a pair of scissors. 3 or 2 snips, 7 or 8 cuts. That plush pony was shredded into pieces by me, like I'd gone mad. The old woman was scared by me. Her expression shifted from anticipation to dazed, and then to horror, as she walked away cursing and swearing. After the old woman left, I lit a fire and burned that puppet to ashes. From that day on, I only wanted money. Me dad, who never liked me to begin with, felt even more that I was unpresentable. He stopped putting on a show of even perfunctory affection, since I loved money, just rewarding me with some gold and silver was enough. I started reading all sorts of books, learning how to do business, trying to find ways to get more money for security. I was scammed, threatened, and even picked up a beggar to be my public face and manage the business for me. Finally, having achieved some small success, I started setting up my trap, bit by bit. I spent money like dirt. I was going to destroy everything Yungshu cared about. I had people get close to Zhao Qinchen to compete with Yungshu for his favor, and had others whisper in Yungshu's ear to push her into an illicit affair before marriage. But Yungshu was reborn. But fortunately, even after rebirth, she is still a fool whose head is filled only with men. While she spouted off about how fated her love was, I was memorizing the political changes and public sentiment of that time, what was popular among the people then, which official exposed a handle, and who emerged as a dark horse. These will all once again become the aid for my revenge against her. In the following days, I started going out frequently. When I went out, Yungshu forced me to wear the clothes she wore when she slept with Zhao Qinchen that day, and to wear her jewelry. She also started spreading rumors that I was loose and seducing young Master Zhao, that clearly being just a concubine's daughter, I still fantasized about marrying into the Prime Minister's estate. I was absolutely disgusted. But I still had to accept it obediently. The more I was humiliated, the greater my chances of using this to make my escape. After wandering aimlessly on the streets for a while, I went to my shop and went up to a hidden attic. Agu was dressed in men's clothes, standing by my side. She was a beggar I picked up 5 years ago. It was the dead of winter. She had passed out from the cold, and I spent a fortune to save her. A girl, starved beyond recognition. wrapped in wet, heavy straw in the freezing winter. If I hadn't saved her, she wouldn't have lived through that winter. Later, when she woke up, the first time she looked at me, I knew we were the same kind. Now, she is my second, in command, from a scrawny bean sprout to a young girl who now stands a head taller than me. Agu is the person I trust most in this world. If word gets out that you posed as your legitimate sister to seduce a man, there is no turning back for the rest of your life. Agu looked at me with concern. I waved my hand, completely unbothered. Reputation is something that can only hurt you when you care about it. She looked at me with heartache. Find a nunnery. I want to become a nun. Also, regarding the newly appointed officials on this list, set about bribing and getting close to them. Make them show goodwill to Wen Changfeng. Spare no expense to pave the way for Wen Changfeng's rebellion. Gu was startled by me. Rebellion. Does he dare? Since the night Yunshu said I would get a divorce, I thought for a long time and envisioned many scenarios. Actually, Wen Changfeng counts as a qualified partner to make a life with. I can accept that he doesn't love me, or even that he treats me as a substitute. No matter how many concubines he takes. I don't care, as long as I can live well. But in the previous life, I divorced. Youngsu died shortly after my divorce, then experienced rebirth. She doesn't know why I divorced or what happened after the divorce. She only knows that Wen Changfeng has a limitless future, much better than that, worse than a beast, Zhao Qinchin. But is that really so? The things that happened later were definitely not simple. Her head is full of men. She never even bothered to think carefully about why things developed the way they did. Therefore, I suspect that Wen Changfeng had entertained thoughts of picking a side and rebelling. Once discovered, it would mean the execution of 9 generations. But Yunshu died too early. She didn't know whether he wanted to rebel in the previous life, or conspired with others to rebel. In this life, I am going to lead him down this path. Moreover, if I tell the idiot Yunshu that she can totally take a gamble to get Wen Changfeng made a prince, or even become the emperor, doesn't she think she is the protagonist of the world? The position of empress or princess? Wouldn't she be greedy for it? Gossip and rumors were like fierce floods and savage beasts, forcing me unable to step out the door. When bystanders recognized me, it was all abuse. Some even threw rotten eggs and vegetable leaves at me from the dark, insulting me for having a heart higher than the sky, actually impersonating my legitimate sister to seduce the young master of the prime minister's manor. Zhao Qinchin knew the truth, but he cherished his reputation and would never speak up for a lowly concubine's daughter. Father rewarded me with a heap of gold and silver again, but didn't come to look at me even once. Yungsu was happily preparing for her wedding. Next month, she was to be married. Father was also taking a big gamble, occasionally admonishing me, warning me, and incidentally, brainwashing me. Shah, everyone has their own mission in this life. Your mission is to dedicate yourself to the prosperity and flourishing of the Yun Manor. The day before Yunshu's grand wedding, he personally came to find me to have a heart. Father first let out a sigh. But that personality of your sister's, it is not like you don't know. We are a family. She made a mistake. And as family, we must help her. I nodded. Father is right. It would be best if in a few years, when Wen Changfeng's crimes are exposed, and the Yun Manor is implicated, he can still compassionately say such words about how a family should share the burden. Getting beheaded, well, it is all about the whole family being there, all neat and tidy. Seeing my indifference, he was momentarily stumped. Don't worry. After this is over, Father will definitely make it up to you. I feigned gratitude. The rumors had brewed enough by now. It was time to make my escape. Father, I don't ask for compensation. I only have one request. He suddenly shut his mouth, looking at me warily. What? Rumors have been spreading like wildfire lately. I know that if I stay in the Yun Manor, I will only be blackening the Yun Manor's name. I let 2 tears fall and looked at Dad with watery eyes. I want to sever ties with the family and become a nun, spending the rest of my life with the green lamp and ancient Buddha, praying for elder sister and Dad. Once I have no relation to the Yun Manor, outsiders won't be able to say anything about the Yun Manor. After I finished saying this, Dad remained silent for a long time. I was terrified he wouldn't let me leave. This way, if word gets out, it will be seen as father's mercy to his daughter. Your daughter stole her legitimate sister's clothes and jewelry and shamelessly tried to seduce the Prime Minister's legitimate son. By rights, I should be drowned in a pig cage as a warning to others. But father is merciful, allowing me to shave my head and become a nun, leaving me with my life intact. My eyes turned red. Father, tell me, isn't this the best way? My words carried a bit of genuine resentment. It clearly wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything. But every time Young-soo acted on impulse, I was needed to bear the consequences. I suppose I just deserve to be the fall guy. Everyone thinks I was born to be a foil for others in a storybook, and that sacrificing myself for the protagonists is my greatest contribution. My happiness, my life, what do those count for? How could they be as important as her protagonist's love? There was a moment of silence in the study. Then you will no longer be a young lady of the Yun Manor. Dad's voice was slightly hoarse. Fine, fine. Although you won't have any ties to the Yun Manor from now on, Dad will still send someone there to protect you. I wiped my tears with a handkerchief, thoroughly wiping away the expectations and grievances of all these years. With this, everything became much simpler. I smiled and said, "We shouldn't delay. Let's do it today. Tomorrow is elder sister's wedding, so she won't be the subject of gossip." Dad only hesitated for a moment before calling someone to fetch my deed and papers, as if afraid I'd change my mind. In just a couple of hours, the person sent to inquire at the nunnery came back to report. It was the very nunnery I had secretly bought off. Agu from the nunnery pulled some strings. Everyone over there is one of us. Come afternoon, Dad went to the yamen to post the public notice. When Gu brought me the news, she said the crowd of onlookers were all shouting that Dad did a good job, placing righteousness above family, correcting his mistakes, and that it wasn't too late to repent now. Dad's grin almost reached his ears. That good. For nothing concubine. Born daughter of his was finally useful for once. The next day, before the sky was even bright, the Yun Manor started bustling. Everyone was so busy their feet barely touched the ground, attending to Yoon-soo's hair and makeup, tallying the dowry, and the matchmaker going over the wedding details. No one noticed that I, a daughter of a concubine, quietly slipped out through the side door. Leaving this time, I didn't take a single thing with me. The clothes on my back, the hairpins, I bought them all myself on the outside. I didn't want to be tainted by this place, not even in the slightest. Agu was waiting for me outside. Beside her was a spacious carriage. She was holding a bunch of wildflowers in her hand, dressed in a low-key gray men's outfit. Seeing me walk over, she smiled and raised her arm. Congratulations on your freedom. I hid out there for a month. According to Agu's informant, it wasn't until the afternoon that Yoon-soo and Dad realized I was missing. They searched until dusk. When Wen Changfeng came to fetch the bride, they finally panicked, shouting abuse in my courtyard and pinning down my servants to torture and interrogate them. Young-soo was still waiting for me to offer up my virginity for the sake of her love on the wedding night. But I ran away instead. Those servants were Yoon-soo's spies to begin with. You couldn't get my whereabouts out of them, even if you beat them to death. Yoon-soo got married as scheduled. She is no fool. On the wedding night, she used the excuse that her period had just arrived. Later, she probably came up with another way to dodge the matter. Wen Changfeng still loved her to pieces, wishing he could pluck the stars from the sky to give to her. The affection between the two made many people envious. In the month I've been hiding, everyone up and down the Yun Manor has been looking for me. Even the nunnery I was supposed to go to was turned upside down. They cared about their reputation. So naturally, they didn't dare say I'd gone missing. They could only swallow their broken teeth and blood, claiming I was living in seclusion in a nunnery to cover for me. They never expected that a daughter of a concubine would actually dare to run away. Nor would he allow a daughter of a concubine to ruin the reputation of their Yun manor. Watching them eat humble pie, I found it funny. 1 month later, I returned to the nunnery. That afternoon, Yongshu came over furiously. Agu entered the nunnery with me, finally able to accompany me openly. Therefore, when Yongshu wanted to hit me again, Agu blocked her hand with a cold face. "Benefactor, please have some self-respect." Yongshu looked at Agu in disbelief. This was the first time she wanted to hit me but missed. Her face darkened, and she said condescendingly, "Yongsha, will you hit yourself, or shall I do it?" If it were in the past, I would be trembling with fear, slapping my own face desperately, until Yongshu laughed out loud. But now, I lifted my face, raised my hand, and slapped her hard across the face. With a phase-mac fei, Yongshu's meticulously maintained face quickly turned red and swollen. She was stunned, looking as if she had seen a ghost. The next second, she lunged at me, baring her teeth and claws. "You bitch! How dare you hit me? Who do you think you are? I've endured this for over 10 years. This is just the beginning of the revenge. Just a single slap, and Yongshu can't bear it already." Gu stepped in front of me and pinned her arms in just a few moves. Unable to strike, Yongshu began to tell me off instead. She cursed me for being an ingrate, saying the Yun manor raised me for so many years. Yet when I was needed, I actually patted my butt and ran. If they had known earlier, they should have just let me and my mother drown together. "I knew you were up to no good. You bitch. Damn it. You deserve to die. You almost ruined me." She hated me to the bone, her eyes bloodshot. "Can you stay away from the Yun manor for the rest of your life? Do you think this tiny nunnery can protect you? Just wait until you return. Dad will skin you alive." I put my palms together and lowered my gaze. "Amataba. Big sister, your little sister is so scared. What if Dad doesn't donate incense money, and the abbess gets angry and makes my life difficult? Then I would have to go hungry and cold, tormented by others every day." She was stunned for a moment and nodded subconsciously. "Right. You rely entirely on the Yun manor for nourishment. Without the Yun manor, you are nothing." I suddenly burst out laughing, rocking back and forth as if I'd heard an extremely funny joke. Big sister, the one who relies on the Yun manor for nourishment, who relies on men to live, has always been you, not me. Yongsoo didn't expect me to be so impervious. How did the me, who used to be extremely cowardly, suddenly become so tough? She didn't understand, but there was nothing she could do. I am no longer a member of the Yun manor, and I have nothing to do with her. If she tries to get physical, she'll only catch another slap. Besides, she is still counting on me to take the fall for her shameful act of seducing someone. The Yun manor can't do anything to me anymore. Yunshu had just left when Wen Xiangfeng arrived. It was rare for men to visit the nunnery. He headed straight for the abbess, requested me by name to resolve his doubts, and paid a considerable amount of incense money. In just a moment, he appeared in front of me. I originally didn't want to bother with him, but I couldn't resist when the abbot said he'd split half the incense money with me. Whatever. I can't exactly say no to money, having not seen him for a long time. Wen Changfeng looked even more radiant, his whole being glowing with energy. Having won the beauty and gained his father-in-law's help, Wen Changfeng would reach that position faster than in his last life. His tone this time was even more guilty than when he broke off our engagement to marry someone else. "Second Miss Yun, I am sorry. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have ended up breaking ties with the Yun manor and shaving your hair to become a nun." His eyes stared at my gray robes, and my smooth, fair neck exposed to the air. He actually thought I was devastated because of him. Thinking of this, I frowned, put on a sorrowful look, and sighed lightly. "Benefactor, Things have already come to this. Saying anything else is useless. Wen Changfeng's lips quivered. If you are willing, I can find a way to get you out and take care of you. You mean, keep me as a mistress? I bluntly pointed out the implication in Wen Changfeng's words, truly shameless. He tacitly admitted to my words, staring intently at me. Second Miss Yun. Even at a time like this, he still wanted to use me to satisfy his selfish desire to save others. I smiled, deciding to add fuel to the fire. Has my legitimate elder sister ever told you about her rebirth? After a moment. He nodded. This fool. It is just as well she said it. My legitimate elder sister said that you have the bearing of a future emperor. Although we are not fated to be husband and wife, we count as half-relatives. At this moment, young Master Wen should focus entirely on his own future. I suggested sincerely, although saying this is somewhat treasonous. I feel that young Master Wen is naturally gifted and definitely not inferior to anyone. You must not let my legitimate elder sister down. Wen Changfeng suddenly jolted. He didn't seem to expect that I had such a high opinion of him. His gaze was complicated. In the end, he said nothing, stood up, and left. A moment later, Agu came out from behind the screen. She crossed her arms and tasked. Yunshu is selfish to an outrageous degree, and this Wen Changfeng is audacious as hell too, really thinking he is some kind of big shot. You can't sleep in the same bed and be two different kinds of people. Being able to divorce in your past life was probably the most clear-headed decision you ever made. I remained non-committal. How is the training of those women coming along? Agu smiled. Very well. Every one of them is as beautiful as a flower. Even I, a woman, want to get close to them when I look at them. They are tender as water, certainly far more endearing than that arrogant Yunsu. Find an opportunity to order them to get close to Wen Changfeng. Agu nodded. As the words faded, I felt a bit dazed. I still remember. The night Yunsu jumped into the lake, she said, in her past life, not even a few months after she married Zhao Qinchen. He got tired of her. A continuous stream of new women entered his life, and every single one was deeply scheming. She fought endlessly with that bunch of women, battling back and forth until both sides were battered. Always feeling like she was being watched, being toyed with. It was as if the most enchanting and seductive women in the whole world were all flocking to Zhao Qinchen. Now I am finally certain. Yeah, that was my doing too. With the news Yunshu shared after her rebirth, I quickly gained control over a group of minor officials, either through money or through leverage. They started hyping up Wen Changfeng in every way, praising his every word and deed, while women were sent into his manor like flowing water. Yunsu lived glamorously in the public eye for quite a few years. In private, she suffered unspeakably. Wen Changfeng loved her, but not that much. The things a young man cannot obtain will eventually haunt him for a lifetime. Yunshu went from the white moonlight he loved but couldn't have, to the cinnabar mole that was easily within reach. Without that halo, Wen Changfeng soon felt she was boring. To compete for favor, Yunshu began utilizing events from her previous life to help him manage his influence in the court. Wen Changfeng grew very quickly. Next, it is time for the pawn I've raised for over 10 years to make a move. With his own ambition at work, plus Yunshu's greedy brainwashing, and the excessive flattery from the people I arranged. Soon enough, Wen Changfeng picked a faction to side with. The Yun family had no choice but to be tied to that ship as well. From then on, the fierce factional infighting began. Wen Changfeng started feeling the strain. Forced along by the situation, he did many things from which there was no turning back. Youngsu started to panic. She came to find me, demanding to know why exactly I had gotten a divorce in my past life. 10 years had already passed by then. The clothes she wore were incredibly precious, and any random jade hairpin on her bun was worth a fortune. Her face was dusted with pearl powder, and her lips were painted with peach, red rouge, but she was so exhausted that she looked as if she'd aged 20 years. All the madams and young ladies in the entire capital had to curry favor with her, the prime minister's wife. But now she was humbly tugging at my sleeve, begging me to tell her. Yunxia, you divorced him in your previous life. Why? Elder sister, how would I know? You are the one who had a rebirth. I smiled faintly. Besides, asking only now, don't you think it is a bit late, elder sister? Yungsu's gaze tightened. She wore nail guards on her fingernails, and the nail guards were inlaid with red and green gems. Digging into my arm, it hurt. I forcefully pried her hand away and stepped back 2 steps. I am just destined for a wretched life. The riches I couldn't enjoy in my past life, I am not qualified for in this life either. Yungshu's face was ashen as she looked at me in despair. Unable to get an answer, she went back despondently. Another half a year passed, and evidence of Wen Changfeng conspiring to rebel was handed up. The emperor was furious and issued a decree to exterminate the 9 clans, to be executed after autumn. I was long since no longer a person of the Yun manor, so naturally I was spared from death. When the imperial decree for the extermination of the 9 clans was delivered, I specifically went down the mountain with a Gu standing in the crowd and watching with great relish. It is not like this. Yungsu shoved away the officials trying to grab her. Doing it over, I won't be wrong, impossible. The others wouldn't coddle her. Seeing her making a scene, Fei papa, Fei, 2 slaps landed. Yungshu was slapped dazed, standing stiffly on the spot. She suddenly struggled desperately. At first, she still fantasized that the Yun manor could save her. But when she learned the Yun manor was implicated and her dad would also be beheaded, she started screaming like a madwoman that she was innocent. It is not me. The one who deserves to die is Yunxia, my half-sister. She dug up ancient history from over 10 years ago, saying that the one who was supposed to marry Wen Changfeng was her concubine, born sister Yunxia, but who would pay attention to a dying madman. Agu stood by my side and mumbled. Even if it were you, you wouldn't die. You are a Dvorkfai after all. Men really are unreliable. Yungshu prided herself on her rebirth, but she still walked the same old path as her previous life. After Yungshu was locked up in the dungeon, she acted like she had gone completely crazy. She couldn't accept that her dream had fallen apart. She cried and laughed, knocking over her food one moment, swearing she'd rather die than eat, and the next moment picking it up and stuffing it frantically into her mouth. I went to the prison to visit her out of the kindness of my heart. She saw me and froze for a good while before reacting, then threw herself against the iron bars, crying and shouting. Yunsha, you ruined me. You are the one who should be dead. You, not me. Her hair was disheveled and her face filthy, and she reeked of an unbearable sour stench. I covered my nose. Elder sister, oh no. I forgot. I have nothing to do with the Yun manor anymore. Miss Yun, back then it was you who insisted on marrying. She was distracted for a moment. No, did you? Did you know long ago that Wen Changfeng's rebellion would fail? You already knew in your past life, didn't you? In this life, you also thought of becoming a monk to save your own skin. With disaster looming, Yungshu actually got smart for once. I didn't answer her question. For the sake of our past acquaintance, I'll send you on your way. She slapped the iron bars, her body rocking wildly back and forth. You bitch. You are the one who ruined me. I should have thrown you into the lake that afternoon too, so you and your vile mother could die together. I was truly blind. I didn't see that you were the Oriole behind. Yungsu regretted it so much her guts turned green. I fully enjoyed her breakdown before death, savoring the taste of a successful revenge. If Miss Yun isn't satisfied, you'll just have to rebirth again, she shrieked, reaching out her arm trying to grab me. The intense commotion attracted the jailers. The jailer carried a stick. As soon as he got close, Yunshu was so scared she shut her mouth tight and turned to hide in the corner. The jailer snorted coldly, only then leaving again. She stared at me hatefully, saying nothing more. Quietly watching her for a while longer, I left some tea money for the jailer and instructed him to take extra care of the people from the Yun manor. As for Wen Changfeng and father, I couldn't even be bothered to look at them. Retribution is waiting for them. I want them to live as peacefully as possible until the day of their beheadings, slowly savoring this despair of impending death. They'd better not hang themselves because they couldn't handle this despair before that day comes. That jailer was also very easy to talk to. He held the heavy money bag, chuckling. The abbess is truly kind-hearted. It is also the blessings from the abbess's good deeds over these years that saved you from ending up with the same fate as this group. Don't worry, I will definitely watch over them well, making sure they eat well and sleep well. I smiled faintly. Amitabha. On the day of the execution, I specially changed into ordinary clothes, and on a whim, I even sewed a small cloth horse. Holding that childish stuffed doll, I stood at the very front of the crowd, watching the group of them get their heads chopped off. Yongshu was so scared she wet and soiled herself. And Wen Changfeng wasn't doing much better. Dad was someone who had weathered storms after all, even though his hair was completely white, and his eyes were full of despair, his bearing was still decent. When he saw me, Dad suddenly got agitated. Yungxia! He gave a loud shout. Yungsu and Wen Changfeng also looked towards me. I nodded with a smile. At this moment noon had arrived, and the executioners raised their big swords high. I also held up that little horse doll. I put it in front of me, fiddling with its 4 legs. Da-da-da. I acted out the little horse running. Yine neighed for this doll, and I also used it as a gift for their final moments. Youngsu's already bloodless cheeks suddenly turned sheet white. Dad also looked dazed, with a click. The executioners' broadswords fell in unison, one by one, human heads, bearing expressions of terror and realization, fell onto the dust. Covered ground. The first thing I did after settling down, I erected a cenotaph for Yin-Yang and frequently made offerings. The second thing, I faced my nightmare of drowning head, on and learned to swim. Agu insisted on teaching me. The third thing, we went wandering again. Just me and Agu, a carriage, a few bodyguards, and loads of silver. We drifted on green waves, watching the rivers flow into the sea. We sought wild paths in the woods, then looked for osmanthus in mountain temples by moonlight. We rose early, undeterred by the chill, and returned late, unafraid of the frost. This magnificent landscape healed me in so many ways. A long time later, when we talked about the past again, Agu said I was too patient, enduring silently for 10 years, like it was a single day, playing such a massive game of chess in the shadows, all while showing nothing on the surface. Waiting 3 years, 5 years, even over a decade, waiting for Wen Changfeng to grow up, waiting for the Yun estate to fall, waiting for all the grievances to be settled by time. Until finally, my revenge was achieved. Agu asked me with a sigh, "Back when you found out about Yunshu's rebirth, were you scared?" I smiled. Perhaps it was the will of heaven to let Yunshu fully taste the consequences. That is why she was granted rebirth. For some sins, Zone's lifetime of atonement is simply not enough.